Hi guys, welcome to the channel. My name's Chris Wright and I'm a landscape photographer based in Granada. Now this week I took a deep dive into the weird and wonderful world of film emulation. Now, disclaimer, I learned my photography on film way back in the days before digital cameras had really made any impression on the marketplace. So when I was at film school, film was all we had, and that's where I learned. And I can safely say, to mangle a cliche, I have forgotten more than I ever learned about film. So take my observations on these film emulation softwares in the spirit in which they are intended. For me, this is probably just as much a voyage of exploration as it is for anybody else. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so here's the picture. Basically, I've done some editing for colour, and what I've tried to do is to get this towards a Kodak portrait look. But obviously there's no grain in it, there's no real analog feel. I think I've done a really pretty decent job on the colours, but this is not film emulation. So what I need to do here is I can go to editing, I can go straight into my Dehancer plugin and I can edit a copy of it so that I can come back to the original later, should I wish to. Sorry, turn the film profile on here and I've got presets, Fujichrome Valve here, and you can see these are beautifully rendered. And these are just film processing, so this is really all about the color and lighting. If I go into presets, you get a much more advanced set. So what my presets give me is a set of renderings that are film emulation, plus in most cases some kind of customization around the type of paper used for printing, the developer profile, and so on and so forth. And let's just have a quick ramble through here. One thing I will quickly point out here, we've got this push-pull control, and what this does is allow me to take my preset and alter the exposure within a plus or minus 2. So this is Fujichrome Velvia -2 +2, so not quite so subtle here. And this will vary from film stock to film stock. With some stocks it's just not in scope at all. So I go back to my Kodak Portra 400, this even, and I've got some control but not a massive amount. Okay, but this gives us effectively 5 times as many film profiles as are available in the drop down. So moving on to presets, what the presets gives me is a film stock selection, and it gives me a set of controls which are precisely modelled on analog film processing techniques. And this is absolutely wonderful. If you're curious about film's analog processes, this is where you want to be, because you will learn so much about it. It's really quite fascinating, and I have never said this about any software before, but go and read the manual. If you want to learn about what these things actually do in the analog process, you will learn a great deal by looking at the manual. It's absolutely fascinating. However, I digress. I'm going to do a quick whistle-stop tour through these. So here is my original. I'm going to go back to my Kodak Portra, okay, with Endura. So very small difference, it's quite nice. Now, these controls in source have got to do with the original picture, so I can change my exposure, change my color temperature, change my color tint. I've got my defringing, which is to do with chromatic aberration. So this would remove chromatic aberration. If it was in this picture, it would appear here in that contrasty area between the hard edge of the building and the light of the sky. So I can do some adjustments there. Let's take that back to where it was. Now here we've got a whole range of stuff, and I'm going to expand on some of these. The film developer, in analog film processing, you mix your chemicals to produce like your own sort of personalized blend of film developer, and that would result in typically changes around contrast, changes around the mid-tone, changes around color separation and intensity of color. And these controls have been modeled on that process, which is fascinating. I absolutely love this, because it tells me that a great deal of care has been taken with this package. Okay, so you can see very fine amounts of changes there. Let's turn that off. Film compression, this again is directly modelled on old analog film techniques. Expansion, same thing, we can get to the black point, we can get to the white point. We've got a choice of colour mode, normal or luma. Print is applying print with all its own characteristics, so different types of paper have their own characteristics. So if we were to change this to there, we'd see a very different look and feel. Okay, but we've got this here, and we can tweak this again here. Okay, color head refers to the lamps that are used. So we've got yellow, blue filters, magenta, green, cyan and red. I can turn that on. Let's just have a quick look at the cyan. Okay, and you can see that affecting. And again, this is beautifully smooth. It's really been really nicely calibrated. Film grain, I'd expect to see that come in, but Portrait is a very finely grained film stock to begin with, so that's not going to become an absolute feature because it's tied to my choice of film stock. Halation refers to effectively halos that are produced at an orangey look. It's switched on here, we switch that off. You can see a very slight increase in the orange values here. But this is typically found around light sources. So if there was a lamp in here, or a street lamp, we could get that beautiful orange tinge around, a fringe around the actual light bulb. And you'll see it to a lesser extent coming through. Bloom refers to what in this picture would be around the whites in particular. So this is sort of light sources in the more general sense. And we can pretty much turn that on and off by playing with the source limiter. Film damage, these are controls that will give me things like hair scratches and so on. Overscan will render this like as if we're scanning the entire film, including the sprockets. Okay, so I've got it set to Super 35. I can go to Ultra Panavision. I can change this around quite a lot. And I really like actually the way that this has been done in Dehancer. I much prefer this. Actually looks like the real thing as opposed to an Instagram filter. Vignetting, and we can see vignetting being applied, white and dark there. Change the size, change the feathering. bring it much more into the middle or outer. And again, I think I quite like the way that this has been implemented. So this effectively is Dehancer, and the big difference you're going to find in Dehancer is that you're modeling analog film processing, and it has been really beautifully done. So this is not a development environment in itself. The way that I prepare to treat this is I will do my basic development in Lightroom, and I will take it out to Dehancer to apply my finishing touches, and that gives me a much more satisfactory result, I think. Okay, so yeah, excellent. Okay, so that was Dehancer Film. Now, Dehancer have also got an iOS app, and the iOS app is slightly expensively priced as a subscription to it, but I found immense value in quickly loading that iOS app because it models the same processes that Dehancer Film does. So if you want a quick and easy way of looking to see just how powerful Dehancer is, download that iOS app and have a look. Take some pictures, apply some profiles, fiddle around with the customized settings, and you really will be quite shocked at the excellence of the results. I've been seriously impressed with it. Okay, before we move on to FilmPack 7, take a moment, and if you go down below the video, it would be brilliant if you put a like on the video. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe. That would be very helpful to me, but putting the likes on is really important because that will get this video out in front of people that are interested in FilmPack 7 or in Dehancer or in film emulation as a whole. So generally a great thing to do, everyone's happy. Okay, let's get into FilmPack. A quick tour of FilmPack, the DxO FilmPack. So along the top we've got various options. So we can save the file that we're working on. We can save the state of the file I'm working on as a preset. We can do compares before and after, compare to a reference image, side-by-side preview. We've got zoom to fit. And we've got one-to-one. We've got modify, crop. We've got rotate, and we've got straighten horizon. So straight away we're seeing that compared to Dehancer, what we're looking at here is much more of a sort of integrated development environment. So once I get in here, I can do a lot of the stuff that I can do in Photolab, at least in terms of the raw processing. So let's have a look at the two sort of areas here. So I can choose from a variety of film stocks. This is, I can get my quite instructive little pull out here, and I like this. This is a nice feature. I can use Time Machine, which gives us the ability to apply a preset from any historical range. So this is fascinating. It's quite like Microsoft and Carter. I'm not going to spend a massive amount of time in here, but if we just look at, say, let's look at a real antique stock. Let's go into the 19th century and apply the first man. This is a daguerreotype, okay? So it shows me a matching rendering. I can choose that matching rendering, and this is what my photograph would have looked like had it been taken in the 18th century, 19th century, I'm sorry. So this is fascinating. It's a little bit, I mean, it's kind of instructive, great for social media, great for curiosity. I can't really see myself using this personally. So let's go back. Okay, so I can go to customize. So if I go back to my presets now, I can simply choose between these presets. So if I go to Ag for Ultra Color, you'll see that reflected immediately here. Similarly, the black and white stock immediately projected here. And these are very, very nice conversions. You can see that a lot of care has been taken over these. Now, where we differ substantially from Dehancer is in the Customize tab. So what we're seeing here is no film rendering. So let's just take a quick shortcut. Go back into my presets. Go to Kodak Portra 400. So here we are. This is nice. Then go to Customize. It's picked up on the selection. So the grain is consistent with Kodak Portra 400. Rendering is consistent. I'm very happy with the way that looks. Now the rest of my controls here are the controls that I would expect to see in a development environment. These do not model any kind of analog film processing. So this does allow me to tweak my picture. I can go here and decrease the highlights, for example. Nice smooth action. It's not too jumpy. These are quite controllable. I can desaturate my color a little bit. And of course, I'm getting away from Kodak Portra. The interesting one here is the inclusion of luminosity masks. Luminosity masks allow me to pick areas based on their luminosity alone and then to apply controls to them. So if I turn this on, I'm going to pick the white areas in this picture. So we want a new luminosity mask, and I'm going to choose my white areas. Okay, and you can see what that's done. It's given me a selection right up at the very white end. I can make this selection more precisely targeted or less precisely targeted. I can change the feathering of this selection, make it more of an abrupt target. And then within that, I can alter the white balance, the contrast, and the light. So this gives me the ability to take an area which is not subject to the kind of overlaps that my tonal controls would offer me. So here I'm looking at highlights, midtone, shadows, and blacks, and these all overlap. So luminosity mask gives me a much more tightly controlled option, and that I like. However, this has really got very little to do with analog conversion. This is much more to do with... so what we're seeing here is we've got this kind of hybrid application going on. Okay, now outside of my luminosity masks, I've got my traditional contrast controls, I've got my white balance controls. These are all global controls. Okay, turn that off to restore it to normality. Okay, go down through contrast. We've now white balance. We've got hue controls, saturation. Let's have a look at hue controls. I can change the red values, for example. Okay, and I find these a little bit abrupt. Got saturation controls, lightness controls, tone curve. I've always been a big advocate of using the tone curve. Within my tone curve, I can change the values of the darks here. The more down to the left-hand end I get, the more darks it is. And the more up to the right-hand side, the change is applied much more to the lights. Now, this tone curve, it's an RGB tone curve. I can do the individual reds teals. You get the idea with the tone curve. Let's, can we restore this to normal? Yes, we can. And then we can apply what I refer to really as Instagram functionality here. So we've got graphical effects. We can apply a frame to it, texture to it. We can put light leaks into it. There is a market for them, so they're here. So I can, if I wish to, save this as a new preset, and I can save it here. So save my settings as a preset. Chris's test preset. Okay, create a me. And I can put my notes in, which is great. Okay, so what do I think about it? So which one of these products do I prefer, or which one's better? Well, it's impossible really to tell them apart, in the sense that a massive amount of care and attention to detail has gone into creating both of these products. The presets are absolutely wonderful on both sides. The difference is the metaphor by which they present themselves, by which I mean that FilmPack 7 presents as a hybrid film emulation development environment, and in doing so it brings the controls that you'll already be familiar with from Lightroom or from Photolab to the table. And so that's one thing. Dehancer is a completely different beast. Dehancer is absolutely dedicated to film emulation, and film emulation provides the visual metaphor for the entire development environment. Now, for me personally, I find the Dehancer's approach absolutely fascinating, and I got a great deal of value out of playing with Dehancer and on occasion looking up and seeing what the analog techniques were, what they consisted of, what the processes were, refreshing my memory around all of that, in order to understand what I could expect to get from various parts of the development environment. And I think that my own preferred approach, my own workflow would be, as I did with this photograph, would be to get my colors right in Lightroom or in Photolab, depending on, depending which application I was going to use, and bring that semi-finished picture into the film development environment. And the reason that I do this is not just because of the sort of faithfulness of the color, but it's to adjust the lighting across the whole photograph. So the one that I used as an example deliberately, the original photograph had a very white sky and a very bright sky and an underexposed foreground. And so a lot of balancing work was required before it went to either of the film emulation environments. And as an experiment, I did take the original straight into Dehancer and straight into FilmPack, and it was not a successful experiment. So if neither of these applications are full-scale development environments, you need to do some work up front in order to get your pictures to a place where you're going to get the best out of these environments. Both of them are extremely powerful. I think for me, I really liked what I was able to achieve with Dehancer, and I thought that it gave me a finished product that I would be quite happy to see applied to, any or all of my street photography. I like the color blend that I made in Lightroom. I liked the effects, the film effects and so on that I was able to bring out of Dehancer, and I didn't feel that they compromised my original intention. I think with Photolab, The film emulation is a straightforward filter applied. I thought absolutely excellent. I couldn't really fault that at all. I didn't feel, however, that the controls added much. I would have been much happier to take the photograph back into Photolab and work on it there, because I think Photolab is a much more powerful development environment. So, but you will have your own opinions, and a lot depends on what you want from film emulation. If it's a straightforward, let's apply a film emulation filter here, and particularly if you're already using DxO software, then there's no question FilmPack is the one that you want. If, on the other hand, you're really curious about film emulation as a science and as a topic in its own right to explore, and you want to learn about analog processors and see how they're reflected in what is a digital processor, then I think Dehancer probably has more to offer on that level. So I'm not going to make a straightforward recommendation. You'll go with the one that you think is best. And hopefully we'll see you back here next week. And thanks very much for watching, and see you later. Bye.